Commission for Gender Equality, CGE, has met with the South African Council of Educators, that SACE, the Teddy Bear Clinic and the Department of Basic Education. This meeting is a result of sexual violence in schools that seem to be going unabated, with a spate of sexual violence in schools, both perpetrated by fellow learners and by educators. The Commission has decided to call on relevant stakeholders, having monitored these cases in various provinces in order to assist the Department of Basic Education in managing, reducing and ensuring that perpetrators are dealt with by the law. We talked to the Commission's Commissioner Mbuyiselo Botha, who joins us now live in our studios. Good afternoon to you. Good to see you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, ma'am.
Now, talk to us about what has been discussed today. I know, of course, the meeting continues tomorrow, but what has the discussion been thus far?
Well, firstly, we had a presentation by the DG and the SACE, as you rightly point out, and part of his presentation was on the questions that we're raising with him. But I should hasten to add, when Apali said that we were distressed and disappointed in that a lot of things that we were raising, the DG and the department had not seen to be up to speed with these processes of sexual violence and rape in our schools.
In what way? What did you observe? Is there lack of interest, or is it lack of knowledge on those particular incidents?
Well, it's a bit of both, but more disappointing, there seems to be no action or there seems to be no commitment that as a department, I mean, we have cases that as a CGE that have been going on, and we come back and say, but the DG, what has happened? What has been happening? You don't find a clear, concise answer as to their commitment to deal with these cases. I mean, the sad part is with the SACE story, I mean, as a statutory body, I mean, what was depressing when Apali says that, they were actually saying, like, look, our hands are tied, or like...
Tied in what way? Because one would imagine that teachers are registered by SACE before they can even practice.
But you have a sense that SACE does not have power. I mean, there are cases that, I mean, this afternoon, what was extremely depressing was that they could not appoint chapter and verse actions that they've taken. It was like, look, our hands are cut off.
Cut off by who?
Well, that's
who are they blaming?
This is the disappointing part, that they are not able to say that. Well, one of the things that we're saying as commissioners was, is it you need your act improved, you need to act strengthened, tightened, what exactly that you need? And I sit here with you, there were no clear answers from SACE, and our disappointment is that, and the department also has been found wanting on many cases. One of them being that, but the cases that, as I said, that they, from 2017, I mean, where learners have been raped, in fact, you would find it is learners who are removed. I mean, teachers remain there, they continue, if they are transferred, they would go on and continue to do their acts of violating
as
young girls.
As if nothing had happened.
As if nothing has happened. And that's where we're of the view that SACE has failed the learners. You can't come to the commission under oath and say to us, you know what, we are at our wits' end.
And the commission, as I said on my introduction, you've dealt with different cases from different provinces. In fact, you've been to all the provinces in the country. What are your observations, or what have your observations been in all the provinces in terms of the sexual violence in schools? Well,
number one, there is what one would call a collusion. I mean, there are instances where teachers would collude, would connive, or trade unions would collude, connive, and the perpetrator would literally be left, I mean, on their own. And the sad thing is that our findings have been, it is the learners who, in fact, are at the coalface. It is them, Palisa, who ultimately have to carry the disproportionate burden of being, shifted away. It is them as survivors or as victims that, as if they called it upon. I mean, SACE was telling us about issues of culture, about issues of bribery, and the questions that we're asking is, but what do you then do? And
if you have the information at your disposal.
Unfortunately and sadly, is that they were saying in not in so many ways that, look, there's nothing that you can do. And I mean, when you
Is there nothing they can really do, Ndate Botha, in all of this? As I said earlier on, that this is the council that is responsible for registering this teachers. Why are they still keeping them on their database?
Well, I don't think that there's nothing that they can do. It could be that whether, and our view is that, do they understand their mandate? Do they understand their act? Or are they really, afraid? Or are they also colluding? And these are the questions that we think are basic in ensuring that there is no justice. I mean, Palisa, sexual violence will continue. The violence, GBV, in our schools, we're talking about, it's heightened in our country now. But the sad reality is that with SACE not doing anything, and somehow the Department of Education, it's reluctant to act, or its inability, which are just powers, that it means, therefore, that this violence, GBV, is going to continue. The sexual assault or rape is going to continue. And I think
how do we prevent it from continuing going forward? What powers do you have as the Commission? Do you really have teeth to bite, or is it just a matter of hearing them out and nothing happens after this?
Oh, no, for sure. We do have teeth to bite. And one of them is that tomorrow we're continuing with all the provinces, Northern Cape, Gauteng, and Northwest, which we have called. One of our powers is to subpoena them. But other than subpoenaing them is for them to make clear commitments, and failing which there will be consequences, because our view is that it can't be Palisa, it can't be business as usual. As South Africans, we owe it to children that every day are violated. So one of our powers is to ensure that these recommendations, you would know that, as a Chapter 9 institution, our powers or our findings are binding, unless if you have a problem that you are able to take them for judicial review. So it's not like you'll come to these hearings and tick a box and say that, look, I appeared, I was subpoenaed, I had no option, and I just ran off the mill. I shared with them, and just end of story. We have timelines that DG posts these 2 days. This is what we want to see happening.
And then if nothing happens,
well, there must be consequences.
You talk of consequences, but what exactly are you referring to? Because I believe the issue of sexual violence and gender-based violence is a concern in South Africa.
Well, we talk about, deregistering. But other than deregistering, because we report to Parliament to say that as employers, the department, when it has failed this, we also have powers to ensure that we sanction them. And as they're arrays of powers that we have as a commission. But what am I saying? I'm saying to you this afternoon and to your viewers that it can be business as usual.
But do you go into the second day of the meeting convinced that the status quo would change tomorrow?
Oh, for sure. Tomorrow and like today, we are not mincing our words. We're saying to them, and let me repeat openly, publicly, unapologetically, that the Department of Education says, and the powers that be, it can be business as usual.
All right. We'll leave it at that. Time constraints, but thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Mbuyiselo Botha is the Commission for Gender Equality Commissioner, talking to us about the meeting with all relevant stakeholders in addressing the scourge of sexual violence in school. And of course, we'll wait and see what happens post this meeting. Time now for your final